Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from this month's sponsor, Ethico.
If you're a compliance officer, middle managers are crucial in getting your programs from you to your frontline employees. But how do we activate those managers and get them on our side? Ethico's new Middle Manager Toolkit equips you with the skills needed to empower your managers, to promote a culture where ethical behavior thrives and employees feel empowered to speak up. Learn how to turn frontline managers into ethical leaders with our new white paper, Empowering Middle Managers as Ethics Champions. And did I mention you can get the whole toolkit for free? Head to ethico.com to download the full toolkit today.
Also, if you are looking for something new and different for the upcoming Compliance Week celebration in November, check out The Compliance Kids. It's my 3-book children's series on compliance and compliance professionals for children. But they make great gifts and great training tools for your employees. You can check it out on Amazon.com. We've linked to it in the show notes. The Daily Compliance News for September 27, 2024, the His Honor Indicted edition. We begin with that story from the New York Times that New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by the United States for bribery and corruption for allegedly receiving up to $100,000 from the country of Turkey and doing favors or otherwise corrupt activities for the country. No word on whether Adams will immediately resign. Or rather resign in the longer term. He immediately said that he will fight these charges. Next up, Matt Levine over at Bloomberg takes a very interesting look at the company Hunterbrook, which is a hedge fund, but it's also a newspaper, but it actually may be a class action firm, because he says that it finds companies that it thinks is doing something bad. It lines up people to sue the company for doing the bad thing. You also short the stock, and you announce the lawsuit, which drives the stock price down further, and then maybe even you win the lawsuit. So, interesting take on Hunterbrook from Matt Levine. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal technology section, the Department of Justice is probing the Supermicro computer company for accounting irregularities from a former employee. This comes through the DOJ whistleblower program out in San Francisco, which was set up before the current one that Nicole Argentaria talked about at SCCE, and it is demonstrating that the DOJ is garnering tips and doing investigations and probing to date. Our final story comes to us from the Securities and Exchange Commission. In a press release, it announced that 11 more firms will pay more than $88 million to settle SEC charges for widespread record-keeping failures. Obviously, this is not new and continues to be a part of robust enforcement by the SEC. But what is new, or at least I wanted to point out, that one firm does not pay a penalty because it was self-reported, self-policed, and demonstrated substantial efforts at compliance. So the SEC is recognizing self-disclosure as a very positive aspect of SEC enforcement, and it appears that if you meet the basic criteria the DOJ has outlined for a declination, even if the SEC brings such an action, you can also get or qualify for a declination. So that's certainly positive for firms to consider if they have these same problems on messaging apps. As I mentioned at the start of this podcast, the sponsor for the entire Compliance Podcast Network is Ethico. Well, Ethico has a great new offering this month for you, a toolkit for middle managers. This is something that you, as the compliance professional, can use to move your compliance program forward by giving middle managers the skills necessary to answer a call for speak up or when someone comes in their office and raises a concern. I can't think of a tool that will be more valuable for you in the current era of enforcement. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.